or whenever we get back, who would be welcome back. Okay. Is that okay? Hi guys, happy Monday. Thank you everybody who showed up for the live lesson and for people who took the time to email me and tell me they couldn't make it. I really appreciate it very much. So we are covering, I think it's chapter 21, but more importantly, it's still versus churned frozen desserts. So that big name means churned desserts. Churned is to turn. So ice cream, sorbet. Still dessert is probably an old-fashioned word, but it's like a solid dessert. So there's not as many examples of that, but one example is something called granité, which is basically using leftover coffee and a syrup. So I've already made the syrup because really it should be, and I took some photos so I can post it later. If you, these days I know we're not doing culinary the way we used to. But when I started in hotels, we made all of our sorbet, all of our ice creams from scratch. Many restaurants are still doing that, which is great, and we'll get back to it. But all your sugar dense pastry is very, very connected. So it's knowing, it's just like any trade, it's very connected. You want to know one thing because it's going to play on the other. So anyway, when we do, I already did some spun sugar with you guys the first week you came in, pastry too. But all these are sugar stages. Our syrup, and you can read about it, but it's a pretty high density for sorbet. That means thickness, heaviness, weight. And so some of you may have already read, and I don't have one here, but the book has a picture of an example called a Baume thermometer or a hydrometer. So a hydrometer is measuring the density of the sugar syrup. Why is that important? Well, some of you, this class still went through front of the house, so you still serve desserts. And saw some of the desserts, or were in baking when we were making desserts. And so if a sugar density is too high, if it's too heavy with sugar, sugar doesn't freeze well. And so it will, when you go to turn it, it will freeze. But some of you may have seen it in the freezer at the center. There's pools of sugar syrup. It's very syrupy. It doesn't freeze hard. If you have too light a sugar density, then it's going to be like ice. It's going to be more like a frozen ice dessert that you might get at a fair or something like that. So I've already made my sugar syrup back in the day. We have, and I hope that's not too long ago, but we would have these syrups in our fridges all the time. A simple syrup is your stock, and I talked about that before. A simple syrup is lighter in density. It's approximately 1:1. 1 cup sugar to 1 cup water, approximately. Like a roux, or however you want to think about it. And so a sorbet syrup is about 2 parts sugar to 1 part water, approximately 2 parts sugar, 1 part water. So it's heavier in the sugar department. But it is important, especially if you're running a business, and you want to start selling sorbet. That's cost, of course, and so it's so simple. It's so simple. It's 3 ingredients sorbet. It seems like, why not just wing it? Well, again, if we're at home right now and we want to just wing it and just guesstimate, that's good. But I talked to a former student, texted me just about an hour ago, and she asked for a recommendation, and she asked for some advice on the business she's building up, by the way, you guys. And she didn't leave too long ago, so she's building up a business during this time and she doesn't plan to go back to Job Corps. She plans to build up her business. So I'm talking about that because she asked me questions about how to do her wedding catering for a client. And in garde manger you did purchasing, well, pastry and baking are no different. So if a whole lot of product is wasted for the cakes she plans to make, or for the sorbet you plan to sell to the restaurant, that's food costs. So that's why it's important. But anyway, and I'm just gonna, this is a fresh lemon sorbet. So that now, and I'm gonna chill it down. I don't have an ice cream machine because it's at Job Corps. So the one thing you can do is, and I just mean the handheld ice cream machine. You can, some of you who are interested in getting into making ice cream and sorbet, you can get a nice tabletop machine for $40 or something. I mean, honestly, I should get one, an electric machine. The machine I have at Job Corps is a hand crank machine. Some of you may have those at home. It actually has a canister type thing. This is a pitcher, but it has a stainless steel canister that you fill with your ice cream product or your sorbet product, and it has a big barrel, and you will pack ice and some salt. This is a fine grain kosher salt, but it'll do for home use for sure. But if you were gonna do a big batch of homemade ice cream, you would actually want to get a larger, they have ice cream making crystals. So instead, and this won't probably be frozen by the time you guys view it, I'm going to save that a little ice. It's very hot in San Francisco and muggy and all over the Bay Area, East Bay, everywhere. We've had, some of you are in the Bay Area still, and so you'll know, I mean, we have had really freak, they've been talking about it, lightning. Right? And all the chefs were talking about it this morning. We're all in the Bay Area, and just freak lightning shows that, I know everybody's all over the country, and wow, there's hurricanes and all this stuff. But anyway, it has been very hot and muggy here. It's shout out to all the Pacific Islanders. It's reminding me of the stopover I did in Hawaii. It's like tropical heat. So I am here. I'll use a little bit of this. And when I would go to layer my ice around the machine, I want to layer it with salt. I'm going to take out a little bit of this water. So I'm making a sorbet today. Very easy. This dates back again to Roman times because fruit juice was something like the emperors would have. And boy, I mean, they were amazing. I mean, they would bring in from far off places, the places they conquered, which unfortunately has been going on since the beginning of time, but they would bring in specialty items, even back then, thousands of years ago, like blocks of ice on barges. They have documentation of it. And it was reserved for the emperors because, of course, so they would bring it up. And they would do a very early version of a sorbet, which was fruit juice and honey, basically. But to have a frozen dessert, even, I know I talk a lot about, just food history. We all do in this trade. But it's really amazing how far back this predates. And iced desserts, cold desserts, if you think about it, were really a luxury item. This is going to take a long time to freeze. So I'm going to just stir it, keep stirring it and freezing it. But I will, on Wednesday, show you the finished result. Now, just as a little interesting, the salt has already solidified this ice a bit, because the salt will prevent the ice from melting too quickly. So it's a good thing to know. I'm going to keep turning it and icing it and freezing it, and you guys will keep seeing the finished product this week. Other things you can do to make a sorbet. A sorbet, traditionally, I made a lemon sorbet. That was used used everywhere, but it's used often as a palate cleanser. Cleanse the palate, even after a first course, the savory first course, after a main course even. And it's, so back in the day when I started, we would often take the lemons. This is a common thing to do at hotels. You take the lemon and you skim off the bottom a little bit, so it's a base, it's a lemon cup, and you'll pull out, of course, all the flesh. And then as the sorbet's coming out of a machine, I mean a tall machine in hotels, tall, maybe like you see on TV sometimes, you know, I've seen it on the Food Network, but it's running, and the product, the sorbet, will be coming out and soft, and you put it right in a piping bag and you would pipe in it. This was a common thing to do. Hundreds, you know, we used to do it at the Hilton. So that's one way to serve it. A lemon sorbet is like sort of one of your most classical sorbets, and that's a good place to start with anything in culinary and then build from it. What I'm going to do once the sorbet is freezing, I'm